Well, Lena, thank you so much for being back to the Entrepreneurial Podcast yet again. I am so happy to have you here. And we're going to talk about something that is taking us one step further, which is all about intuition. However, before we dive into that, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, well, it's amazing to see you again, Henriette, and thank you so much for reaching out. We just established it's been about 3 years or two and a half. I can't remember since we last spoke, so it has been a while. So as you already introduced me briefly, my name is Lena Thompson, and I was born and raised in Russia, South Africa, Israel, and now I'm living in UK. So my background is computer science. I've graduated with a cum laude degree in computer science from South African University. And then I came here in 2004 for 6 months contract. I never left. And I spent about 15 odd years in a corporate arena where I consulted to global organizations like Microsoft, CBRE, and many, many other clients. But there was always that feeling like something was missing, like I was missing out on something. And that I was trying to kind of fill that feeling with travel, with holidays, with careers, with money, but it just got stronger and stronger. And what I know now is that whenever you try to ignore something like that that's so deep within you, universe has a way of getting you to face it and stop running away from it. So I had to finally face that, and that happened back in about 2018, 2019, when my entire life has changed. And since then, I really went on this journey of self-discovery. In the first couple of years, I really spent figuring out what is it that I wanted, who I was, and why I was even here. It's the questions I've been asking myself my whole life, but I never really had time or, really time to dive into it. So I spent a couple of years on a couch with big questions, journaling so much to really get some clarity. And yeah, and now my passion is to speak. So over the last couple of years, I've spoken in many international stages, a lot in corporate stages, with a aim to integrate those two worlds, spiritual and a corporate world. And I delve further, like deeper rather, into metaphysics, such as Course in Miracles, human design, and into human psychology to understand what is it that makes us human tick, what is it that makes us drive, and how we can have most fulfilled and successful lives.
Yeah. And I think this is why I'm so excited to have you back on the podcast, because the previous podcast we did was episode 138, and that's Do You Know About Human Design? And I know that's one of your topics, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. But for those of you who are listening and you're thinking, what is she talking about? Go and have a look at our episode 138, Do You Know About Human Design? Where Lena literally goes a little bit more deeper into that. But what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about this one entity, which I love. And you just mentioned that it's about this intuition part of us. The universe has got a way of just kind of guiding you and telling you that something's got to change. Look into this. But that is where our intuition comes into play. And I find it fascinating when people talk about it, because I think we all have different aspects of it. We all have a different understanding of it. But tell me a little bit about intuition and your take on it, and just set the scene for us. What would this look like then?
Yeah, absolutely. So, many of us believe that our logical minds are in charge and they're really supposed to control and figure how things going. And the thing is, with a physical mind, it's not designed to understand how things happen because it's just not capable of figuring it out. And the reason for that is that it's rooted in the past, right? If you think about it, every decision you make from here, from your logic, there is got a part, you straight away start looking in the past, even like, what am I going to eat? Or should I call this person? Or which job should I apply to? You are straight away going to the past memories. So it's not capable of predicting the future, even though we try all the time how it's going to happen, right? Trying to figure things out. But that's when we get stuck in this analysis by paralysis. So the mind is really rooted in our past. It can't predict the future and it has no interest in the now. And I like, how Chinese refer to it as I think they call it monkey minds, a mind that is really restless, confused, doesn't know, like it wants this, then it wants that, then it wants something else. So, and this is really what holds us back. Those constant voices in our head, like, I'm not good enough. If I say something, will they get upset? I'm so scared of failure. What if it doesn't work out? And literally, these are kind of the voices that hold us back from stepping into our full power and living the life we're meant to be. So I'm not saying, that there is no use for the mind. There absolutely is, but it's more here to analyze and to plot and to think, but just not so much to make decisions. It simply
Yeah.
just cannot. So when we then talk about intuition, that's a very different thing, because intuition is here to guide us and to guide us to get us onto the right track, and also make decisions without knowing why and how. And the way it works, there's nothing like mystical about it, but all it is just a bridge between our conscious and our subconscious minds, right? And that's why, because we've got access into subconscious mind, we can start making decisions in a non-linear way, meaning that it's instant, because we don't need to revisit the past. We don't need to figure out the future. We just know. It's like the knowing, when you know something without knowing how. And we'll jump hopefully later into how we all experience it, because we experience
Yeah.
it differently. So the subconscious mind then is a record. So you can think of it as a record of everything we've witnessed, we experienced, we've learned from the time we were born. And 95% of our day, we spent in our subconscious. We're only conscious 5%. So actually, when you think about it, when we make conscious decisions, we're only using 5% of our faculty, and 95% we just don't bother, right? So with intuition, we've got access to it. And in the top of that, not only we have all of this information, but our subconscious mind processes data. I think it's like 27,000 times faster than our conscious mind does. And that's why when we tap into it, decision is instant. We just know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the most important thing is to trust it.
I
So I
know.
hope that explains a bit more the difference between logical and intuitive minds.
And I love how you explain it because it makes so much sense. I mean, it's it's the nature of insanity almost, because this is for us as business owners in particular. When we're trying, what is that? Is it Albert Einstein who said that? And I might get this all wrong, but it comes to the fact that if you want a different outcome, you can't be doing the same thing over and over again. And this is where a lot of us business owners use the brain constantly. But I love how you explain it, because if we want a different outcome, if we want something different in our businesses, we can't logically keep on thinking about how to achieve this, because our brain just analyzes everything that has happened in the past in order to give you data. But for any
Yeah.
future decision making, that's where your intuition comes in. And I think that is so powerful. I've never heard anybody describe it that way. Just make it so, so clear.
Well, I'm glad it's clear, because, yeah, exactly what you said. The thing is, we go into the past, we project it into the future, and then we make our past our future because we keep
Yeah.
projecting, right? That's all we're doing. That's all the mind is capable of. It's capable only of projecting.
Yeah.
So, and then be like, oh, well, I knew it's going to happen. Or why am I getting the same results? Well, because you go into the past, you're literally recreating it, because it's not, there's nothing else the mind can do.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, with intuition, like it's unlimited, right? We can, I mean, and if you think about it, all of these things that we have in our physical world now, it started as imagination. What is imagination? It's like a byproduct of intuition. Like, oh, that would feel good. How would I feel like to create an airplane? Right. And then before we know, boom, there's an airplane. But it started in somebody's like imagination. They didn't
Yes.
sit there and trying to logic their way through what an airplane should look like. Right, brothers? They purely relied on the intuition, and they always
Yeah.
spoke about it.
Yeah. No, I love it. So tell us a little bit, what does intuition mean to you and how do you experience it?
So to me, really, intuition is that knowingness. It's like when I know something without how I know something, and it's the way I experience it is differently. I basically I get like, I would say it like it's like a silent voice where I would go into. So, for example, when I don't know what to do, that happens a lot. Like literally, I just don't know what next step to take. Or when you experience the void of nothingness, you're like, nothing in my life is happening. I love sitting on a couch, and I would just set an intention to receive the information I need, because I've got no inspiration. I just genuinely don't know. Or when I receive like some news that's, well, I don't like this news. The ego doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So I will then just sit on a couch, and I will set an intention, and then the information will come to me. And it could be like something so small. I remember actually once was last year, I was contracting to banks. So I went back to corporate since we spoke for like about 8 months. And I didn't know what to do on a certain project. And my team and I were literally circling around that solution for a week, maybe two. And eventually I got fed up of Google, of researching. I couldn't figure out. And I remember I sat on a couch and I closed my eyes and I said, okay, universe, in this quantum time and space, in this realm of infinite possibilities, there must be one solution. And the answer I got, go for a walk. And I still remember I looked outside and it was pouring with rain and I snapped my knees in yoga. I was like, it was just quite painful for me to walk. But I know better than to argue with that voice. So I went for a walk. I went to the canal, which is like 2 minutes. And I kid you not, within 2 minutes, I had one, two, three answers coming to me. And then when I start receiving, because sometimes it's really hard to know whether it's the monkey mind talks to you or
Yes.
whether it's that voice, that your truth. But the way you know is by how you feel. So I feel like the expansion, like it's like it's like the whole feeling, like it was like literally glowing in around my gut area. And I remember I went home and I called my team. I'm like, guys, I've got a solution for us. And I told them about my idea. And I'll never forget that. They were like, how did you figure that out? I'm like, I sat on a couch. I went for a walk. So, as I said, I experience it like as a voice. It's like a download, and I can
Yeah.
just write some ideas, and that's normally how it comes to me.
Yeah. And it's funny that you're sharing that story because I can very much relate to it. I love my meditation, and that's how I find I get my ideas and my downloads and things like that. But anybody can just even go for a walk or just do something differently that just takes you away from that logical mind trying to figure it out. And I love what you're sharing there because I think, a similar story when I decided to start my business. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going with this. But there was this pull inside of me that I just cannot describe. But there was just something telling me, do it, do it, do it.
Mm.
And it's exactly like that. You had this expansion, this feeling of excitement, like, this is incredible. I have no idea what I'm doing. That's the logic mind. And the
Yes.
inside of my stomach just went like, we're doing this. This is incredible. And I think that's the beauty of it because we don't always know how to tap into our intuition, how to distinguish, is this the mind or is this my sixth sense intuition telling me to take this next step? So I
Yeah.
love the fact that you're sharing that it is through your emotions, through how you're feeling. And I always share with people as well, if you're feeling excited, if you're feeling this is amazing, this is it, it's your guidance, your sixth
Yeah.
sense, your intuition, whatever you want to call it, is telling you to go for it.
Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes when, let's say, the challenge comes up, the problem comes up, and we don't know the answer at this moment, it doesn't mean the answer does not exist. We
Yeah.
just don't know, right? But why we don't know? Because we're thinking with 5% of our minds, of the conscious and
Yes.
subconscious. We only think of that. So just because we're not aware of it, it does not mean that the answer does not exist. But what we then do, instead of tapping to the awareness, and logical rational mind is not able to do that, so instead of connecting to it, like going for a walk, or like in my case sitting on a couch, or actually doing both, or whatever that is, we start overanalyzing, trying to find rational solution, researching, calling colleagues, friends, figuring things out. But all it does, it just blocks our intuition.
Yes.
And I promise you, every single time, like I keep reminding myself, if there is a problem, the solution was given to me straight away. I'm just not aware of it. So let me connect to it. Let me tap into this awareness. Let me look for guidance. Let me sit with it, right? We just don't allow ourselves time to process it because we live in a society, we've got to have answers right now. And I've had this conditioning my whole life. I was literally like trained, I wouldn't say like a monkey, but with the math books when I was small, like I had to be logical. I had to figure things out, and it created so much conditioning where if I don't know something right now, it means I will never figure out, and it created a lot of anxiety and fear. So it was a lot of unprogramming, deconditioning I had to go through to
Yes.
really get to the place where, well, if I don't know something, let me actually do nothing because I know every action I'm going to take is going to be useless. Let me actually do nothing and really just be with it and see what turns up.
Yes. And I love the fact that you're sharing that as well, because I do believe that, especially in today's time and age, I love the fact that we are, living in a time and age where there's an abundant amount of information. But I think
Too
it's also
much.
very overwhelming.
Yes.
And what we're doing is this is me saying this, I might not be correct, but this is how I feel, is that, we kind of unlearned how to tap into our intuition, into our sixth sense. So we're always being bombarded by external factors, constantly telling us what we need to do. Again, going to the logic mind. But that kind of stopped us from tuning into that sixth sense and just kind of, strengthening it and listening more to it, which we'll get to in a minute as well. But this comes back again to human design, because I know we did an episode on human design, but tell me a little bit about how will human design then help us make better decisions using intuition?
So let me just kind of again set the scene for human design in case somebody's listening never heard of it. So human design, like whenever I do my talks, I often introduce human design, and the way I explain it for somebody who's never heard of it, that it's like a similar to personality profiling tool like Myers-Briggs Disc Strength Finder that assess our strengths, our weaknesses, how we perform under pressure, whether we're introverted, extroverted. So you could kind of say it builds on these platforms, but then it introduces an energetic element to it. And because of that, it literally, I believe, can transform our entire lives. Because if you think about it, we are complete energy, like 99.999%, right? And it's not even a spirituality, it's science, it's quantum physics. So with human design, then it's a blend of Eastern and Western sciences such as genetics, quantum physics, Kabbalah, astrology, I Ching. And the way it works is you input your date, time, and place of birth, and it generates your blueprint. And here's the most amazing thing I still find is that your blueprint is unique to you. And
Yes.
unless you've got an identical twin, there's like nobody else like that in the world. So it's like a science of differentiation. So the benefits of that, I mean, I can probably like write like a book thick of like War and Peace explaining the benefits of human design. But in my opinion, it's the most powerful system for self-understanding because it shows us how to firstly use our energy correctly. And energy, I always say, is our highest currency, right? The
Yeah.
more energy we cultivate, the more success we generate because energy is everything. Energy is key to life. It then also shows us how genetically we are wired to make decisions that are correct for us, um, connecting to our intuition. And that's what was so important for me to understand because I've always been very tuned in, very spiritual, I guess, even as a kid.
Yeah.
But this would not allow me to access that. Even I knew that, I would always overthink. And I still do that now, except I catch myself, like I know where it's coming from. And so human design helps you understand how do you experience intuition, because typically we think about it as a gut, right? So whenever you go and like you read about intuition, it's like, oh, you've got to trust your gut or don't trust your gut. And it's kind of very like divisive. Trust your gut, don't trust your gut. So it's like, well, do I trust it or don't I trust it? And I can see where the confusion comes from because not all of us are meant to experience intuition through our guts. Some, yes, like me, it's for me, it's all in my gut and it's instant also. For some people, it can be in their gut, but they need to wait for clarity. So they're not really meant to make spontaneous decisions. For other people, like my daughter, for example, if I tell her like trust your gut, it's not a good idea for her. She'll have no connection to her gut apart when she's hungry. So for her, it's more she's a splenic manifester. So it comes in as an instinct, and it speaks very differently to the voice of the gut, for example.
Mm.
Some people are meant to make their decision literally with the heart, like following like my heart's desires. What does my heart want? And this is basically the right decision. Some people are meant to make decisions by through the sounding board. So they need some people to offload, to go and speak it out. And because through the voice, they find the clarity. So that's why I feel human design is extremely powerful because it really helps us to tune into our bodies and access intuition correctly.
Yes. No, I think it is so powerful. And I'm sure as you're saying that, everybody is now thinking, well, I need to know what my human design looks like because I want to know how to tap into my intuition. Which brings me to another question. How can we all pay a bit more attention to our intuition or develop it or enhance it? From your experience working with human design, which I'm sure is also part of the key, but how can we enhance it more in order to tune into that sixth sense, gut, whatever we
Mm.
call it, because there's so many names for it now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the first thing we need to slow down, and that's like prerequisite for anything, because we cannot access that subconscious mind I was speaking about earlier when we are just too busy running around. We just can't, right? We can't be in a state of awareness and a state of fight and flight where we operate all, most of the day, not even fight and flight, but that's, overwhelm, overstimulus from
Yes.
external world around us. And so often, like I was at this big expo where I was speaking a couple of months ago, people came up to me and they're like, I went to so many lectures, I've absorbed so much information. And actually, I'm like, well, what are you going to do with this information? Well, I've learned, okay, and are you going to apply any of it? Probably not. So you see, the thing is, we are absorbing so much information, but we don't give ourselves time to integrate it. And
Yes.
actually, if we give ourselves time to integrate it, we'll probably realize we don't need half the information. So it just blocks. It literally just blocks our mind, and it doesn't have access to, to our intuition. So my idea is like, take things out of your day. Like, what are you doing just because you think you need to do, or you worry that if you don't do them, then you're going to be lesser than, whatever that is. So simplify your life and just begin by slowing down. Have like a few minutes even in the morning. How would I want to create my day? What would you love to experience? How would I want to feel? So it's more connecting to the feelings rather than the thoughts in your head, and just trying to navigate your life, trusting more your emotions than the mental chatter. And is again, for that, we've got to really become aware, and we can't become aware if we just busy ourselves with thousands of things to do in a day.
Yes. And I think that's so powerful because this is where I find meditation helps me so much. I give myself an hour in the morning to sit down, get into the zone, as they say, and then I start meditating. And that sets me up for the rest of the day. And I do this every single day, nonstop, even weekends, even holidays. But it's the best thing I'm doing because since I started meditating, I I have found that I am much more in tune with my intuition.
Yeah.
And the logic mind is still there, but it doesn't dictate what I need to do for the future. And I think that's the beauty, and which is why I love you describing and setting the scene from the start. But it all comes back down to us just understanding that the external factors play a key role. And sometimes we got to cut out the noise in order
Oh,
to tune in.
absolutely. And the thing is, intuition is not even just for us to have this, it is obviously to have the clarity and awareness to get the ideas. You know how you get this aha moments, like, oh, that's it. That's what I mean, even when I was a computer programmer and I would be stuck with a particular task, I couldn't figure out, the code would be crashing, nothing is working. And I finally like have a fit, a tantrum when I go home and I have a glass of wine. I'm like, oh, that could work. I haven't tried that. And then I go back to the office next day, first thing, and it works
Yeah.
because I've relaxed. I took my attention off the problem, because wherever our attention goes, our energy flows, right? So if we're too focused on the problem, on the challenge, then that's what we're energizing. But if we take our attention off it and just connect to the infinite field of possibilities, we're going to be energizing a very different energy. So it's energy of panic, fear, anxiety, or the energy of expansion. So what do you want to give our focus and attention to? And then from intuition then comes aligned actions. And I do like entire masterclass on aligned actions, because it's very different from the actions we're accustomed to take, right? We just
Yeah.
take a lot of busy actions, but busyness doesn't guarantee productivity. It only guarantees business. Sometimes it's productive, but sometimes it's just busy. But alignments, that's the key to productivity. That's
I
the key
know.
to achieving our goals and, pretty much everything we want in life.
I don't know, and I love that you're sharing that because I always talk about inspired action. I guess it's
Yeah,
exactly the
same
same
thing,
thing,
same
just
thing.
different wording. But
Yeah.
it comes back down to that again, because, with us being business owners, because I know the majority of my audience are business owners or looking to start a business, we're always thinking about what is it that I need to do? What is it that I need to do? How am I going to do it? But it's not about what it is that you have to do or need to do. It's about what is that action that is inspiring you. Again, that expansion, that feeling of excitement, that
Yeah.
is what counts. And I've got more examples than I could ever share here on one episode
Same.
alone, just to say how amazing that is when you tune into that sixth sense, into your intuition. But honestly, Lena, I think, for us who understand this, I get so excited to talk about it. But I'm hoping equally that the audience gets it and understand it, and they can take a golden nugget away from this, or two or three, because there's so much power in us knowing who we are as individuals and where our energy lies, and what it is that we need to tune into a lot more. And this is where I think with what you're doing with human design, it's so powerful because all of us want to know more about who we truly are. What is it that we can do? What is it that we're passionate about? And I think all of that comes together when we go through a process such as the human design and just discover a little bit more about what it is that we truly are unique for. So, with that said, you are offering a human design reading for everybody listening here today. Tell us a little bit more about it and what they can experience from it.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I mean, I've been delving into all different self-help tools, however you want to call them. And when I came across human design, I was like, that was the missing piece of the puzzle because it really allowed me to see me. And the interesting thing, yeah, it gave me some new information, but most of it I already knew, but I didn't have the verbiage to describe it. And I didn't trust it. Sometimes you really need that extra validation. So I do 3 different sessions depending really where people are on the journey. The first is just like a 45 minutes where we dive deeper into what kind of energy type they are, how they're wired to make decisions. And we also look at the profile, which is really who they are in this life, how they learn, how they communicate, how they progress through life. It's so it's about 45 minutes and it's a really great introduction to human design. And then those who are familiar already, a little bit at least, are also offer the deep dive where we actually look a lot more into conditioning, where we are not being true to ourselves, what is actually holding us back, how to overcome it. And then we'll also look at the life purpose and the spiritual purpose and the unique message that we all have here to deliver. So that's a 90-minute session. And then I offer like a coaching session because I often hear from people like, hey, I had a human design reading a couple of years ago. I have no idea what to do with it. Like, how do I make it practical as a business owner or in my relationship or in my health? So I help them to integrate that.
And I love that because we're all in different levels. We all have a different understanding of it. So thank you so much for making this available. So for those of you listening and you are really intrigued about human design, wanting to know more how to tap into your intuition to make those decisions for the future, for what it is that you truly want, then I highly suggest that you go to my show notes, click on the link there where you can go and obviously book that with Lena. And she is so good at what she does. I mean, she's always captivated me since day one, since we'd done that previous episode on 138 talking about human design. I was always captivated by it. So I know that you're going to get great value from it as well. And then also, I would highly suggest that you go and connect with Lena via LinkedIn and Instagram, and obviously her website details will be on my show notes as well. So go and follow her there. She's got some great stuff that she's always sharing. But I think if you really want to make this worth your while, just go and schedule a human design reading with her. You are going to be amazed. And maybe even amazed is not the right word because it's just profound. But Lena, I can't thank you enough for coming back onto the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast and just sharing so much more. You always have so much information that just makes us think a little bit more as to, where is this going? What can I do with this? And how can I apply this to my life? So I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I
Thank
really,
you for
really
having
do
me.
appreciate it.